It's our privilege this morning to have with us Congressman Ron Paul from the 14th District in Texas, congressman there since 1979, also a congressman from 76 to 79 in the 22nd District of Texas. You'll find that we tried to get a hold of Ron Paul for a couple of reasons. One is that back on the 12th of March, if I have my dates correct, he declared his candidacy for the presidency of the United States, but mostly because he's a guy who doesn't play games. I'm going to give you a little bit of a taste of that, and then we'll bring the congressman right on. A couple of excerpts from a speech from March 20th before the U.S. House of Representatives. Selected excerpts here. The congressman said, "The constant refrain that bringing our troops home would demonstrate a lack of support for them must be one of the most amazing distortions ever foisted on the American public. We're so concerned about saving face, but whose face are we saving? A sensible policy would save American lives and follow the rules laid out for Congress in the Constitution and avoid wars that have no purpose. The claim that it's unpatriotic to oppose spending more money in Iraq must be laid to rest as fraudulent. We should pass a resolution that expresses congressional opposition to any more undeclared, unconstitutional, unnecessary, preemptive wars. We should be building a consensus for the future that makes it easier to end our current troubles in Iraq. It's amazing to me that this Congress is more intimidated by political propagandists and special interests than the American electorate, who sent a loud, clear message about the war in November. The large majority of Americans now wants us out of Iraq, and as we bleed financially, the Constitution and the liberties it's supposed to protect, for which it is claimed our soldiers are dying in faraway places. Only with the complicity of Congress have we become a nation of preemptive war, secret military tribunals, torture, rejection of habeas corpus, warrantless searches, undue government secrecy, extraordinary renditions, and uncontrollable spying on the American people. The greatest danger we face is ourselves. What we are doing in the name of providing security for people made fearful by distortions of facts. Fighting over there has nothing to do with preserving our freedoms at home. More likely the opposite is true." And Congressman Paul, I appreciate your forbearance as I read that quote. The reason I found it, just so electrifying to read that last night, because we're a little confused about the war here in the state of Utah. Good morning.
Good morning. Nice to be with you.
What can you tell us, Congressman Paul, about your motivations for running for president, and how do you think this is going to play, your staunch opposition to the war?
Well, probably what you read there expresses my reason for running as much as anything. It's part of a bigger picture of big government and less individual liberty, but this is a major source of our problem, and that is our foreign policy. It's not only dealing with Iraq, but, over 50, 60, 70 years, we have just drifted away from having a non-interventionist foreign policy to one where we believe we are the policemen of the world and that we should be involved throughout. And instead of it getting a little bit better for us after the Cold War was over, it actually gotten worse. People said, we're the only ones, so we have more responsibilities. And so we haven't backed off now. Now we as a nation spend more money than everybody else put together on weaponry. We expect everybody to toe the line, and I think it's tragic, and I think the American people are sick and tired of it all, but I don't think they quite understand exactly what the policy is that they have to reject. Some would say, yeah, it doesn't make any sense, we probably ought to quit, but we better go get the Iranians. Some of them are wanting to back off on Iraq, but they're ready to go after Iran. So it's an overall policy that I'm interested in, and I think it's very simply outlined for us in the Constitution that we just don't have the authority to police the world.
Congressman Paul, I noticed that you were one of a grand total of 8 congressmen in our federal legislature, that is, that opposed the National ID Act. And I can't help but think that's probably 8 to 435. That's probably about the ratio that you would face as a constitutionalist president. I mean, that would be quite a logjam you would face as a president of voting against this machine that you're in such opposition to right now.
But so much of the bad legislation was pushed by the president onto the Congress, and the Congress capitulated. So if you had less of that type of leadership that was pushing us in the wrong direction, maybe we would have a lot less of the legislation. And then, of course, when the legislation is very, very bad, you should just veto it. You shouldn't, put up with it. But you're also making a very good point. I think the sentiment is pretty questionable about how ready the American people are for less government. I think sometimes they're ready in generalities, but not in specifics. They'll say, yeah, that sounds real good, I like that, but in my case, I need my subsidy. I'm in the corn belt, I need corn subsidies. There's always some exception to the rule, and therefore, once you make one exception, there's not much left to the rule of law, and I, quite frankly, don't think there's that much left to the Constitution.
I've heard it called a dead letter, and that it has been for a long time. But that bully pulpit, that could be a real revitalizing element. If we had, I'm thinking just the inverse of what we have now, where we have a president that is sort of the puppet, the mouthpiece for a cabal that really wants to take the last signs of life out of the Constitution.
Yeah, I think the American people traditionally have liked a strong president. And I keep trying to think about that, but, quite frankly, I don't want to run people's lives, and I don't want to run the economy, and I don't want to please the world. But it still is attractive to think that a person could be strong. But I think it's, in what way would you be strong? Would you be strong in using power or strong in resisting power and leading people away from bad ideas and from doing things that people accept traditionally? So I think that just because I would not want to tell you everything you have to do with your personal life and believe that I could run the economy, that this would be a weak position. Matter of fact, I think it might take more strength resisting this power these days than to go along with it.
I was on a little website by the name of Small Government or Small Government Times, smallgovtimes.com, Congressman, and they said the following: Paul's Presidential Exploratory Committee, formed earlier this year, stirred up his enormous grassroots support from heartland voters, small government believers, and fed-up Republicans who believe current GOP candidates offer no real solutions to an expanding federal government and refuse to tackle America's important issues, such as illegal immigration and erosion of American civil liberties. Without embarrassing you, can I ask, do you know what kind of have some sense of the reaction, just the news that you'd be on with us for 25 minutes among this freedom movement community we have within Utah? It's amazing. I don't know how you've managed it, but there is tremendous hope vested in you, Congressman. And does that burden you, or does it enliven you a little bit?
Well, the truth is I'm still a little bit confused by it, because I hear these stories and we do get a lot of responses. But when you get down to the bottom line, which is really what counts, we're not true competitors. I mean, the establishment candidates have $7,500 million, so I don't want to pretend, yet at the same time I hear these stories, and the truth is I don't know if anybody knows the exact numbers out there of the people who are willing to support a candidate like myself. And I guess that's what we're involved in right now, and trying to find out, are the numbers there? Will they respond? Will they be volunteers? Will they send some money? And obviously we can't compete on the money basis, but fortunately in this day and age with the Internet, we might just be able to compete with communications in that manner. So therefore I, am not overly optimistic, but a bit skeptical, but also hopeful that there are numbers out there, because certainly an individual can't do this by himself. This has to be done as a reflection of a movement that's been going on for more than a year or two. Mm-hmm. And I think the freedom movement has been going on pretty solidly for 30 years, because when I first started in the 70s, nobody had the vaguest idea what was going on, but a lot of changes have occurred here in the last 10, 15 years.